What's up, King of Kings? Welcome back to Being Challenge, a 40-day challenge to be like Jesus. We're asking the very complicated question of how do I grow in my relationship with God? And we've got a simple answer to it. We should look to the only one, Jesus Christ, who was in perfect relationship with God when he existed in this world. And so we're exploring the habits that led Jesus to connect with God and challenging ourselves daily to put these challenges into our life and these practices into our life. And so hope you're enjoying it. Today we're going to get into the fourth keystone habit of Jesus. Just over a year ago, I had an awesome opportunity to go to a Brazilian steakhouse restaurant. How many of you have been to one of those before? You can put the emojis up the screen or comment in the chat box if you'd like. And this was a unique experience. And for those that haven't been, while there is a salad bar, let me just say it's a vegetarian's nightmare. And so it's a place centered around all you can eat, but it really features lots of different meats. And so there's guys that walk around with a skewer and a knife, and they bring the meat right to your plate and they cut it off for you. And it's just a really awesome experience. And so it was a fun time to go there and try something new. And I was excited about it. And that night I ordered the premium deluxe. Like there was nothing on the menu that I couldn't have. And so after I ordered it, I went to the salad bar to fill up just a little bit, on the healthy stuff. And so I got ham and salmon and candied bacon, the salad type of stuff. Went back to my table, had these yummy little Brazilian bread things. I don't know if there's cheese in them or not, but they're just delicious. And I started filling up on all this other stuff. And right away, as I got to the table, there were guys that hovered over me with all sorts of good options like bacon-wrapped chicken and sausage and turkey and pork and sirloin. And you might be getting hungry right now. And the way that you tell them you want more is you hold up the green card, which says, yes, please. And if you're full, you hold up the red card, which says, no more, I'm pretty full. And what happened is, in about 5 to 7 minutes, I had said yes to everything, green carded everything, had all this good stuff, and I was full so quickly that by the time the best stuff came, the filet mignon, I was already on a red card. And I was thinking, man, I did not think this through very well. And these Brazilian people are really smart. They get you in, they hover you over with good stuff, and they hold out on the best stuff so that when you're finally full, then they bring the best stuff and say, I don't have room for it anymore. And I was kind of disappointed in myself. It's a lot of money to go in and just really quickly spend and to not even get the best stuff. And I started reflecting on this a little bit more. And I thought, you know what? Spiritually, I think a lot of us are doing the same thing. That we are green carding a lot of good things into our life, and there's nothing wrong with good things, but if we say yes to everything and all the good stuff, then sometimes we unfortunately say no to the best, and the best is God. And so what we're saying in this series, hang on, my mom's calling here, and I got to turn this thing off really quickly. Let me just send her a quick message. Okay, cool. So anyway, sorry about that. What I was saying is we want to be like Jesus. And so we're going to take dead aim at him. And so we're looking at that key theme verse of Matthew 11:29, where Jesus says, walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it, and you'll learn the unforced rhythms of grace. And so these habits that we're looking at, we believe, are the unforced rhythms of grace. And habits sometimes are difficult to form at first. They're not always easy. They're a little challenging. But these habits will eventually become the unforced rhythms of grace. And so we're looking at the habits in Jesus' life. And if you haven't connected with us so far and you're jumping on new with us this week, that's okay. We've got all the past messages on our website and in our app, and you can see those links on the screen that you're on right now. And so the three keystone habits we've already explored are the fact that Jesus committed to community, that he studied scripture, that he prioritized prayer, and today we're looking at Jesus seeking solitude. And so, are you kidding me? Oh man, it's one thing after another. Sorry guys, I'm on a fantasy football team and it's a really big matchup. I'm playing against Greg Griffith, and I just saw that Patrick Mahomes is out. And so I need to change my lineup. I can't afford. He's been talking a lot of smack this week. And so I got to change this really quickly. I know this is rude. I'm sorry. Let me just do this while I preach really quickly. So I got to take Mahomes out. That leaves Baker Mayfield. Let's go Cleveland Browns. I'm going to put him in and then submit. All right, I just can't afford to lose this. I know this is not good to do in the middle of a sermon. So where were we? Oh yeah, we were talking about the practices of Jesus. And today we're looking at seeking solitude. And I knew that Jesus did this. I was a little surprised it made the top 5 in terms of how often it came up. And so the Jesus practicing seeking solitude, it showed up about 39 times is what I counted in the Gospels. And so Jesus had this amazing ability. We talked the first habit of Jesus committing to community. Next week, we're going to talk about choosing church, and there's a community aspect of that too. But Jesus had this beautiful balance of being with people and around people and surrounded by community, but then also this beautiful balance of being alone and spending time with God, where it was just Him. Oh man, why is this happening again? Sorry, I'm here. I'm flying home later today, and you know in this year that flights have just gotten changed around a lot of times, and the flight that I just got notified is not going to work for me, and so I've got to change it really quick so I can make my flight home. Just forgive me. This is really, really rude. I'm sorry. If you couldn't tell, these are fake, made-up distractions. I don't know if I'm a good actor or not, but it's a point that I want to bring up today, that in this world where we're talking about being alone with God, distractions get in the way so often in our world. And if I'm honest with you, come on, I know you might be annoyed how many times I went to my phone, but how many of you already in my extremely engaging message today have checked your phones, have thought about the grocery list? Maybe when I mentioned fantasy football, you checked your team. So come on, I know that you're doing it too. And so what I want to do for the rest of this service, I know you're watching on a screen, but if you've got other screens or devices on or around you, can we just put those aside for a little while and spend time together alone with God in this moment? Get away from all the noises in this world. And that's part of what solitude is. It's about getting away from the noises of this world so that we can truly be alone with God. This is an incredible keystone habit of Jesus that we see pop up very early on. In fact, I see it already in Mark 1. I get a little exhausted. If you think your life is busy, just look at what Jesus went through in Mark 1 alone. I get exhausted reading it. And so in verses 14 and 15 of Mark 1, Jesus begins his ministry and starts preaching the gospel right away. Then he calls his disciples, and he finds himself in a synagogue preaching and teaching again. And as he's preaching, someone's yelling, and they're not yelling, "Preach it, Jesus, that's so good, keep going, Pastor." No, it's a man that's possessed by a demon. And so now Jesus is preaching and exorcising a demon at the same time. And if that's not exhausting enough, then he goes to Peter's house, and Peter's mother-in-law is sick. And so Jesus heals Peter's mother-in-law. And so Peter gets some brownie points there. And then it says, after all of this, after all that has already happened, the sun went down. And the text says in Mark 1 that people then brought to Jesus all the sick and demon-possessed. And look at what it says. The whole town gathered at the door. And Jesus healed many who had various diseases and drove out many demons. That is quite a day. And if I did all that on a Sunday, you know what I'd do on Monday? I would plan on sleeping in. But that's not what Jesus does. In fact, the very next verse, Mark 1:35 says, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place. And there he prayed. What did he do? He got away from all of the noise, and he got to a solitary place alone with God, where he prayed. And this is what I like about the Keystone Habits, is that many times we can do more than one at the same time. And so Jesus is seeking solitude and he's prioritizing prayer in the same moment. They can work together. And again, this is one instance of 39 that I counted where Jesus either preached or practiced solitude. Jesus did solitude at all times. He would do it before making decisions, and he would do it after making decisions and after going through difficulty. Jesus sought solitude. He spent 40 days in the wilderness alone with God before he actually began his 3-year ministry. We talked last week about how he spent time in solitude overnight praying to God before he made the important decision of choosing the 12. He spent time in solitude grieving the death of his friend John the Baptist after he was martyred. And he spent time in solitude leading up to the brutal death and murder of him on a cross, Jesus sought solitude in all sorts of circumstances. And so I want to look at why Jesus would seek solitude and look at three important truths that I see in the habit of Jesus seeking solitude that are true for us. And here's the first, is that solitude that I'm talking about is it's not about being alone. It's about being alone with God. Now, if you look up the definition of solitude, it'll say the state of being alone. And I actually think the secular definition is a dangerous definition because it's dangerous for us to be alone. That's not how God wired us. We're not meant to be alone. And so Christian solitude is about being alone with God. And you can even think in our prison system, the worst punishment that you can undergo is what's known as solitary confinement. It's not good to be all alone by ourselves. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, there is a place called Orfield Laboratories, and it has the Guinness World Record for being the quietest place on earth. In fact, in the room there, in one of the rooms, it gets to -9 decibels, so that when you're there, you can hear your heart actually beat and even the blood flowing through your veins. And they'll rent this place out to companies that are trying to get accurate decibel measurements for new products. And they'll actually open it up for tours and have groups and individuals. And supposedly, people that have been in that room all alone usually only last a couple of minutes, and apparently 45 minutes is the longest anyone's ever been able to stay in the room by themselves. We have a hard time being alone in solitude. Blaise Pascal, a theologian, said, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And then he was in the 17th century, so the 1600s. And you think if that's true for him today, how much truer is that today in our world, which is filled with so many distractions? We are made to be in relationship. We talked about that a few weeks ago. We're actually not meant to be alone. And so it's not ever good for you to be fully alone. And so solitude is not about you being alone. It's about you spending time and being alone with God. And that's exactly what Jesus does when he's in solitude, is he's praying to God. He's talking to God. He's listening to God. James 4:8 says, come near to God and God will come near to you. And so our solitude is about coming to God and talking with him and listening to him. And we have a promise that God will come near us and that God loves us and we're his children. Remember, we talked about identity a couple of weeks ago. And just like I have kids, I love to spend time with my kids, and God loves to spend time with you. And so it's not about being by yourself. It's about being with the very God that created you. There was only one moment in this world when anyone was truly ever alone, and that was when Jesus Christ went to the cross for you and for me. Remember in that brutal moment where he's hanging on the cross, he cries out, Father, why have you forsaken me? Jesus went through this separation and complete loneliness so that you and I would never have to experience loneliness. For our God is always with us. His promise is that I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you. And so we are actually not alone. We're in relationship with God. But even if we're in relationship with God, we also need to spend time and get away and actually take intentional steps to be with him. I think a lot of us spend time alone, but it's what do we do in those times of being alone? What are the thoughts that come to our mind? What are the activities or the hobbies that we might fill our lives with? And sadly, I think a lot of times when I just want to get alone, I just want to get on the couch and watch Netflix. And that's not bad all the time, but if that's all we ever do, then what does that show about where your heart really is? Are you trying to find rest and get recharged in the things of this world or in God? Archbishop William Temple said that your religion is what you do with your solitude. I love that. He's saying what shows, your heart shows in what you're doing in your times of solitude, where your thoughts and your mind goes, where your hands and your feet go in your solitude. It tells us a lot about what really is going on and what God you really serve. And I want to be like David, and I know I'm not always like this, but there are moments where it's like, yes, I believe that and I want that, and that's true. Where David says in the Psalms, better is one day in your courts than thousands elsewhere. I just want to be with God. And what an amazing opportunity. This is the great opportunity that we get to be with God in this world. It's awesome that God saves us for eternity, but the opportunity we have now, the abundant life, is that we don't have to wait to be with God. We can be with him right here, right now, and he has not left you. He will not forsake you. He has not abandoned you. He is here to spend time with you. And so solitude that I'm talking about is about being alone with God, spending time with Him. Number 2, solitude is not about clearing our minds, but filling our minds with God. Every day is a battle for what we allow into our minds, and people and companies and clubs and businesses and groups and organizations are fighting for that mind space of yours. Advertisers are really good at coming up with catchy slogans or just the right images so that you remember their products at just the right time. It's what they're paid to do. And so my question again is, what are you allowing in? Going back to the opening illustration, what are you greenlighting into your mind? The average American struggles to go more than 10 minutes without checking their smartphone. The average person checks it 80 times a day. Millennials are 150 times a day. And I believe that Gen Z statistics are going to be even higher than that. 75% of people can't go to the bathroom, check their smartphones while using the toilet. That's crazy. And in the last 20 years, I'm sure that there's a correlation. ADHD has nearly doubled because we are living in a very loud and distracting world. And before I started working on this series a year or so ago, as I was writing all of this, as I was typing up this message, I just kept getting notification after notification on my phone. And I looked in my screen time, how many notifications. And on the average day, I would get 332 dings, rings, pings, and bings through my phone. That's a lot of stuff going on in my pocket or on my wrist. And man, that was just too much. And now, not that I picked it up every time, but clearly this is a distracting thing that's keeping me from doing what God is calling me to do. And what's amazing is you can set boundaries and you can set limits. And since then I've done that and I've gotten it down closer to 30 notifications a day. It turns out you don't have to have a notification every time you get a text. You don't have to do that. And not all emails are important. But my point in this is we're going to get a lot of distractions that come into our world. They're going to come. And not all distractions are bad distractions, right? If I'm in a meeting that might even be important, but my wife is having an emergency, that's a distraction that I'm going to need to enter into and hear about. But that's not most of the distractions that I get. And that's not most of the distractions you get. Come on, you know that most of the distractions you get are articles that pop up that are going to tell you to read it that may or may not be important. It's texts that don't require immediate attention, and it's emails that honestly they don't need your immediate attention. So what is important though is noting that all these distractions are coming. And what are these distractions keeping us from in our life? Because my thinking is that with everything that's going on, the busyness that a lot of us feel with the distractions piled on, that a lot of us, we just get so worked up in our minds. We've greenlighted so much that a lot of us, and I've said it before, will say something like, I just need to go clear my mind. I need to escape. I need to get out of this and just kind of empty it all out. There's even a growing number of Christians that are exploring the idea of meditation. And while meditation is actually a biblical principle, it's been hijacked by Eastern religion. And they're teaching a different type of meditation than the Bible is teaching. And it's confusing to a lot of Christ followers. So let me explain. Eastern meditation, Eastern religion sets its goal as the emptying of our mind. That's where I just need to clear my mind and just get all this stuff out of here. But that is nowhere close to the biblical model of meditation. And so if Eastern religion's goal is to empty our minds, biblical meditation is not to empty your mind, but to fill your mind. Why? Because God didn't create you to be a mindless human being. He created you to be mindful. And He created you to even be creative. We are made in His image. He is the great creator. And so if we're made in His image, we also are creative. And so it's not about emptying my mind and clearing my mind. It's about, no, I need to fill my mind with more of you, God. I love what Paul says in Philippians 4, that finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is admirable, whatever is trustworthy, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. Fill your mind with these things. And a lot of us get so caught up and busy in this world, and busyness isn't even a bad thing, but with many of us, that turns into hurried, right? And what you find about Jesus is He was very busy, but He was never really hurried. He had a pace about him, and Jesus knew exactly when he needed to get away to go recharge and to fill his mind with more of God. Not to clear his mind from everything that happened, but no, God, I'm going to need you in my life, in my mind, in my heart, in my soul as I go out and do your work. And that's exactly what happens, that when we spend time alone with God, he fills our minds and he gives us peace that passes understanding, gives us joy that's unspeakable and confidence in our day. And he gives us the strength to run and to not grow weary and to walk and not be faint. And this is what God does for us in our minds. So we're not called to empty our minds, but rather to fill our minds. And here's what's great. God will fill your mind because God is still a God who speaks today. At my church a year ago, we do a series every year called You Asked For It, and we put about 20 or 25 questions that we feel like our people have asked in the year, and we ask them to vote on these, and whichever ones get voted on the most, those are the sermons we'll preach on in the series. We'll pick 4, 5, or 6, and we'll focus on those. And the number one most requested question we had in 2019 was this: how do I hear God's voice? How do I hear God's voice? And I told the church, God is still speaking. The problem is that we aren't listening. And the reason we're not listening is because we've got the noise of the world turned up everywhere. That when all the other noises are coming in and all the other distractions are coming in, it's really easy to miss God's voice, because God a lot of times speaks through a whisper. And we might think, why would God do that? Well, it's because the enemy's shouting at you. And why does the enemy shout at you? Because he wants to remain at a distance from you and keep prowling around. So he's just going to shout lies at you. He doesn't want to be near you. But our God whispers to us to remind us, I don't need to shout at you. I'm close with you. I'm in relationship with you. So let me just whisper to you. Let me just speak to you. But we'll not hear the whispers of God and his voice if we don't turn off all the noise and distractions that can come in this world. David again says in Psalm, be still and know that I am God. You want to hear God speak? You want to have your mind filled with him? Be still. And God will speak and fill it up. And then our last point in solitude is, I think is really important, is that solitude will not make you less productive, but more productive. Because that's why I struggle with solitude, is because I got a lot of stuff to do, and I don't know if I have time to just be quiet and be silent and listen to God, and I just got all these things that I want to do for God. But here's what's amazing. When I look at Jesus, I don't think you could argue this fact that even though he died at a very young age, there has never been a person that has been more productive than Jesus himself. And Jesus, as busy as he was, found time to be alone with God. He was more productive than anyone else, and he still regularly practiced this time with God. And so we also are called to do this. And here's why I think that solitude makes you more productive and not less productive. It's this one word. I believe that when God fills your mind, that you have focus. And we all need focus in this world. Last week, we talked about how prayer brings direction in a confusing, option-filled world. And that's important to have that final direction. But it's cool to know where I need to go. But I also need focus, because there's a lot of distractions that are coming my way. And if I don't stay focused, then I'll veer to the left or the right, or I might even take some steps backward. And so solitude brings focus in a loud and distracting world. And I believe focus really helps bring productivity. I've seen that in my life, that when I know what to do, I'm far more productive. When I don't know what to do, or I'm just unsure, that's when I'm very unproductive. And earlier I talked about distractions, and what's interesting is the word distract, it means to draw apart. It's from 2 syllables in Latin, the verb trahere, where tract means to draw, and the prefix dis means away from. And so think about it. Our distractions are literally drawing us away from something. And maybe you're smarter than I am, but I've never looked at the word distraction before, but look at it. Distraction. If you're struggling to gain traction, it's because you're distracted. CareerBuilder did a survey in 2016, and they found that the average employee, that employers believe that they're wasting 2 hours a day because of distractions, and 43% are wasting 3 or more hours a day that are lost because of distractions. That's a lot of expense and a lot of waste every single day. And so I need to have solitude in my life to bring focus. And so here practically is what it looked like for me, and it'll look different for you. But when I'm preaching a message on a Sunday, I usually have, by the time I step on stage, about 20 to 25 hours of preparation in that message. And so that includes, listening to sermons. It includes reading God's word and collaborating and studying and writing and rehearsing. And that's a lot of hours to put into one talk. But what I've found in my life, the practice that's most helpful for me is after all of that, where hopefully I'm connecting with God and including Him in all of the steps of the process, I've gotten into this rhythm on Sunday about an hour before game time, right? Hour before stage time, of just turning everything off and pushing everything away. And for 10 minutes, up to 10 minutes, sometimes it only takes 5. Just saying, okay, God, I feel like I've been faithful. I feel like I've done what I need to do. Now, just really clearly tell me, what do the people need to hear? And it's amazing. I'll spend 25 hours prepping. But it's amazing how in that 5 to 10 minutes, God will give a word to me, where He'll either reaffirm the work I've done and give me confidence to go on stage that I may not have had prior. Or He'll take a little piece of something that I worked on and He'll say, I want you to really talk about that more. Or sometimes, and I kind of like these the best, He'll give me a new word that I wasn't planning on. And it's amazing how often when I hear His voice in that moment, when my spirit connects with Him and I spend time alone with Him, how often I just hear words of grace. That He always emphasizes the grace part of the message, right? Always emphasize. And He says, Zach, just tell the people I love them. Tell them I forgive them. I choose them. I'm coming back for them. I'm still with them. I haven't abandoned them. And just all this good news. And this is what we need to continue to fill our minds with. And it brings focus to a product or a work that I've done. And this is what God does in your life. And I'll close with the words of Jesus in John 14, 4 and 5, where He says, remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. And neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Remain in Him. Translations say, abide in Him. The key to your productivity in at least the things that matter eternally in this world is abiding and remaining in Jesus. It's more of God and less of you. And really this whole Being Challenged series that we're all about, I'm talking to a lot of doers, a lot of people that want to do great things for God. And I love that heart. But you will never outdo God. You will never outdo God. And simply one of the best decisions you can make to do great things is simply to be with God. You'll be far more productive as you remain in Him. This thought I mentioned last week, but it came to me several years ago when I just started putting too much pressure on myself. And this thought came to me of, Zach, I can do more in 1 second than you can do in a lifetime of your best work. And it humbled me, and it took all the pressure off of me, and it reminded me, so my point in all of this, my role in all of this is just to be with Him and stay connected with Him and let His power work through me to do what He wants to do. When we spend time alone with God, we fill our minds with Him. And that gives us the focus to stay true in what God is really calling us to do. And so what I want to do as we close this message is I want to practice what we preach. I know that we're going to be doing that over the week in the daily workbooks that a lot of you are doing, and in your small groups, you're going to talk about these things. But I want to spend a few minutes right now at the beginning of our week, if you're watching live, right now, and just spend time filling our minds with God and resting in His love and His grace and being propelled the rest of this week by Him and by His words. And so what I want you to do is I want to spend just a few minutes of silence, a few minutes just being with Him, and our worship team will come up shortly and they'll lead us in a great worship song. But just spend a few minutes quieting your soul and asking God to come near to you, and our God will come near to you. And as he comes near to you, and as you're silent, my prayer is that your mind would be filled with more and more of him, and that you'll hear his words of grace. I love you. I forgive you. I choose you. I'm with you. I'm coming back for you. Let's continue to just fill our minds as we quiet our lives and welcome him in.